Over the next few minutes, we will encounter Berg's Piano Sonata. It is dire, it is fantastic. It's a pretty amazing work. So we are going to explore what exactly makes this so amazing. But before we do, if you have not hit subscribe, please do so now. It would help us out a tremendous deal.
This is Captain Lawrence Liquid Gold, brewed right here in this apartment by me and Katha.
Why does a home-brewed Captain Lawrence's Liquid Gold fit the bill? Berg's sonata, though written at the turn of the 20th century when classical music notoriously began to work its way into uncharted territory, is brimming with romanticism. Liquid Gold is a Belgian-style ale running on the sweeter side but packed with spicy undertones. The ale is brewed with coriander and is a rich golden color with notes of clove and banana thrumming through its undercurrent. In 1910, the year Berg wrote this piece, tensions ran high in Europe. Its relations were complex and anxious. This brew, like the sonata, recalls an image of the old world at the turn of the century, a time reeling in unmitigated possibility. But what is most important for the brew and for the music is that they're both delicious.
Alban Maria Johannes Berg was born in Vienna on February 9th, 1885. His parents were not musicians, and initially Berg was not interested in music or composition at all. He actually wanted to be a writer. At age 15, his father died, and during that time he began to be more interested in music, studying it by himself.
In 1904, he started studying composition, music theory, and harmony with Arnold Schoenberg. So Schoenberg became more than just a teacher for him. He became almost like a surrogate father, because remember, Berg was around 15 at that age and he really needed guidance. So 4 years later, Berg was still studying with Schoenberg, and he had begun to work on several drafts of his Opus 1, which was his piano sonata. Today, Schoenberg is kind of seen as the father of atonality. You might recognize that word. It's in our group name, aTonalHits. So what exactly is atonality?
The breaking point came when Schoenberg developed a 12-tone system, a new way of organizing music. When asked the question, how many notes are there in an octave? Most common answer is 8. Although it should be 7, because 8th note is a repetition of the first note. We think of the major scale with its whole steps and half steps. However, Schoenberg posed the idea that each tone is given equal significance. And now we have 12 tones. But enough of Schoenberg, we'll do another video about that. Let's get back to Berg. Because Berg was pupil of Schoenberg's, he learned this system and employed it in many of his works. Although this came later, because this sonata was written in 1910 and the 12-tone system was not developed until later.
Together, Berg, Schoenberg, and Anton Webern, another student of Schoenberg's, formed the Second Viennese School, forging music forward into the 20th century. Berg is arguably the most tonal of the three, even in his later works, although he does have a 4-hour opera, Lulu, that's completely 12-tone. Berg's piano sonata, though it wanders through abundant chromaticism, whole tone scales, and different keys, is still essentially in B minor. An unstoppable feeling pervades the entire piece, only resolving in the final few measures. The opening phrase, so that's measures 1 through 3, presents all of the basic material included in the entire work. So this is what Schoenberg called Grundgestalt. The opening chordal gesture, which is constructed of perfect fourths, augmented fourths, and diminished fifths, as well as the initial dotted rhythm, serves as separate motives that are interspersed throughout. These 3 separate motives introduced in the opening phrase continue to develop throughout the piece, while still strictly adhering to the constraints of a formal sonata form. Berg employs a repeated exposition, development, recap, and coda, tying each together with these motives.
So if you got lost in Katha's spiel, it's basically the opening phrase consists of 3 motifs which together contain all of the information for the piece to be developed later on. Think of a strand of DNA, it got all of the information in it, but it's called Grundgestalt. Also, Berg follows a very classical sonata form, something that Haydn, Mozart or Beethoven would have used. So, for example, here is the exposition. This is the first subject. The second subject starts in major 30. There's even a repeat at the end of exposition, which was a traditionally classical form. A lot of the Romantic composers would avoid repeat later on. Development starts at bar 57 and lasts all the way to 111. Recap starts at major 112. And then the coda starts at bar 168, which is one of the most special parts of the piece.
The end result is a youthful, hyper-romantic sonata ripe with modern harmony bordering on atonality. Constructed from 5 sketches Berg created in the early years of his work, it was originally intended to have 3 movements, as per the traditional classical style. Berg found eventually that, quote, "For a long time nothing worthwhile occurred to me," whereupon Schoenberg remarked, "In that case, you've said everything there was to be said." Glenn Gould perhaps surmises this piece best. Besides referring to the sonata as Berg's graduate thesis from Schoenberg, he also says of the work that we are left with the impression of great peaks and lesser crests, calibrated as carefully and achieved as inevitably as in music of a more orthodox nature. So in other words, Berg had to write this music to get it down onto paper. It was created thoughtfully, but also was on a real gut level. Only a person with such immense talent as Alban Berg could communicate his ideas to the world through this marvelously romantic, challenging work.
What are your thoughts on Berg, his life, or this music in general? Let us know in the comments below.
Go check out Illya's recording of this sonata located on our channel. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we will get more videos like this to you soon.